Hello, it's Pete here and welcome to the vlog. Now today we're going to be using one of my favourite dies from Tim Holtz Chapter 2, and that die is Flower Field. It's just a single die, but wow, check out that detail. And we're going to be making, hopefully, something like this. So here's my die. This is the Flower Field die, as I mentioned. You'll notice that there's no blade across the base. There's a very good reason for that, because you can make this as long or as short as you deem necessary and cut it to size where appropriate. Lots and lots of detail in this as well. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to cut. I've prepared this, I printed this out, and I've cut it to size so that when I place my die over the top, I know it's just going to cut on those edges. The best way to keep a die like this in place, because the last thing that we want is for this to slip out of register. So what I'm going to do is take some of my wonderful Sizzix Maker's Tape. Now, the Maker's Tape will ensure that when I pass it through this machine, it doesn't slip out of register. That's very, very important, because that would ruin the whole thing. Now, oh, this is Pete's tip of the day, incidentally. If you're using tape like this, fold the end over so that when you come to use it, it's always there. I know, because I've done umpteen videos like this, and I spend most of my time trying to find the end of it. So there's a good little tip. There you go. It was worth watching for that alone. But let's get on with our make, because I've taped that down, and I'm going to take my Sizzix fold-away machine and I'll place the die, and I'll place it face up, and it's not going to slip out because we've used our Maker's Tape, so we know that. It's quite a complex die, so for peace of mind I'm going to run it through twice. Once should be fine, but as we know, with complex dies, particularly with heavier weight card, there's nothing more annoying than having some bits which didn't quite make the cut, both metaphorically and literally. So place that to one side, and what you can see now, I can just pull that away with perfect confidence, knowing, and because of the tape, it's stayed in place. But also this tape is very, very low tack. Some people use washi tape, but washi tapes have different levels of tack, and some of them will lift the surface of your card, particularly coloured or quite delicate surfaces. It will impact those in a way that is not very nice. So again, that's another project ruined. So it's very delicate. Now with these bits, obviously, Tim has come out with a new die brush and die tool, so you can actually get all of those bits out. So that's good to use the second time. Now, I'm going to poke these out. Do you know what? I'm talking about Tim's die tool, and I realise, and I apologise, Mr. Holtz, I've actually forgotten it, so I'm going to use a Sizzix one. It's doesn't have Tim's autograph, and it's not quite as cool, but it does the job. So I'm poking these bits out. I'm being very careful, of course, because they are quite delicate, but the design of the dies is as such that it's very hard to cause any damage. Now this is 300 GSM white card, and it's a smooth card, so it's ideal for inking. And we'll just get all the way through these. This, in the past, this was never the fun part of the job, but these die tools and the die brushes, they have made it so much easier. And anybody who goes back like I do and remembers when we started having complex dies before we had such tools will know what an absolute pain it was before that. So there we are. So we'll just get the last of these bits out. It's actually, there's something therapeutic about this. It's a lovely process. So there we are. And you can see how delicate these florals are. The balance of them, the way they connect, the way they join up, makes a wonderful background. And we'll show some other examples of these later. Now, you could even get away with, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tear the base of this as well. I like that torn look. Some of you may not. That's entirely up to you. It's just the way I like it. But just that, on that lovely blue from the Sizzix cardstock range, that by itself would be perfect. But it wouldn't be much of a vlog, would it, if we just left it there? So what I'm going to do now is take this, and you'll see that I have a lot of distress inks here. We've got from yellow through greens, blue greens, so there's quite a lot of different shades there. But before I do that, I've die cut a circle of cardstock, and this is going to be my sun, and I'm just going to apply a little distress ink. This is squeezed lemonade, and for a bit more depth of colour, I'm going to come in with mustard seed, and I'm going to apply this directly. And you know what? I need to start. I've had this for donkeys, and you know, rather than pick a new one out of the box, I go on. It's still working. It's fine. It serves me well. So there we are. We'll just apply that, and finally, I'm going to take some of this worn lipstick, pop it onto my craft mat, spritz that to activate, and I'm going to dip that in, and it's going to give me that lovely mottling, which I love because it gives me texture, it gives me extra depth. I'm going to set that aside to dry naturally. It is my preference with distress inks and oxides that they dry naturally. Using a heat tool gives you very different results, and there's nothing to say that they're, or using indeed kitchen paper to dab it away. You'll take more of the pigment away like that, but I just like the natural look. So we'll bring back in our flowers. We're going to use a technique this time, which is, you know, with distress inks, we like to work in a circular motion. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to apply the colour. Oh, there you go. There's another one of those pads. We're actually going to go directly onto the card like this. And this gives me a different kind of blend, a different kind of depth of colour. And it's also imperfect. We can see here that it's stronger in some areas than others. So it's quite random. And random, in my book, is exciting. It means I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get. Now, that was Twisted Citron. I'm now coming in with the wonderful Chipped Sapphire. I think if we're talking about favourite colours, I wouldn't say what my favourite colour is, but because it changes by the day. But I know if I chose a certain part of the spectrum, it would be between yellow and blue. So it's the greens. I do love working with greens. Now, this is mowed lawn, and again, this is a deeper green, but there's still some yellow in it. It's but what I'm going for is the contrast between these colours. So we've got those three going on there. Then next up, I'm going to come in with Evergreen Bow, which is a blue green. Look at that. Now the contrast there, and I'm overlapping these as well. So I'm bringing it into the other colours. Ah, I love that. I love that blend. It's superb. But how easy is this to do? I mean, how effective and how easy. And we haven't even got going yet. We've got some other things to come in too. Now, let's get some more on the tip of that flower. And I think, yeah, a bit more Twisted Citron for the top of there. Now, Forest Moss. I have a bit of a Forest Moss fetish at the moment. I love this colour. It's somewhere between a green and a brown. It's almost like a military green in many ways. But there you go. I'm going to come in. I'm going to pick out certain areas. I'm going to go over bits, unify it, blend it. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, this is the next part, and this is the fun part. But the first thing I want to do, there's a lot of ink on this mat, so I'm going to clean it up. Because I want to make I want to extend that down. But I don't want to do it with my blending tool. I'm actually going to do it with my ink pad. So I'm going to come in there like so. I'm going to spritz that, and I'll use the end of this tool just to get some interference running through there, just to get that going on. And I want it in this kind of area. But the randomness of it is what's going to make it lovely. Oh, look at that. Now it's come down into the lettering. If you want to knock that back slightly, simply use your kitchen paper and it will dilute the strength of the pigment. But that's what I want. I want it coming down into the words. I really do. Forest Moss, just a touch we're going to spritz it. I'm going to bring it here. And there's another area I want to bring it there. Look at that! Look at that forest moss. Look at how that goes with that one. Wow, that is stunning. And I'm not taking credit for it. It's just the nature of the beast with these distress inks with water. It's you cannot fail to get stunning results. You really can't. Now, finally, we're going in there, and I'm going to dip the rest of these into that water. So, but look how that very yellow green, that very dark, deep, almost brown, and that lovely blue, the contrast that we're getting there. I'm going to do a final spritz and just leave that to sit for a minute. I will be using the heat tool on this eventually, but I'm going to put it to one side. We've got this one going on. That's dry. Now I can use the heat tool because the water has done its bit. I'm also going to spritz onto that with some clean water. Let that soak in just for a second, just to activate the pigment, and I'm going to lift some away. So that is another way to get contrast. Now, my Sizzix heat tool, it's a dual speed heat tool. So for things like this, it's great to have it on the high speed. If I've got a make where there's delicate watercolor pooled on card, then I will want to go to the lower of the two heat settings. Sometimes I like to use the lower heat setting if I'm using embossing powders, although many people use the higher heat setting for that. And it's great also for shrink plastic, the higher heat setting. So let's go in. Again, let's dry that off. Or at least get it to a point where I can work with it. Okay, made an executive decision. I'm going to come back in with my Evergreen Bow just by there, just to add a bit more, just to blend that in slightly. There you go, perfect. Now, this is all ready to go, but I want my sunshine, because what we're looking at here, this is a flower field, a wildflower field. It's first thing in the morning. The sun is coming up behind those flowers, like so. So that circle that we see, you know, there is method in my madness sometimes. So we've got that sun coming up. I'm going to use, this is Sizzix foam tape. It's wonderful foam tape. You can tear this, you can cut it, you can cut it down to size if you want smaller pieces. Really, really cool product. Now I'm going to peel the backing off this foam tape. And normally what I'd do is I would maybe cut some little pieces, put them on the flowers. But you know what? Do you really want to see me? Do you really want to watch me do that? No, I don't think so. You know what I mean. You know what I'm getting at. So I'm going to place this onto my card, equidistant from the edges and from the top and the bottom. Thus, and there we have it. Now, you can see why it would probably benefit from having some little foam pads just in certain areas, so that to sit there. Here is the one that we made earlier. As you can see, very different, lots of similarities, and that's the beauty of this, and that's what I want to try and convey, is that it's going to be different every time, but it's always going to be great. Now, another one, I've used some other colours in here, not just the greens, but you can see I brought in some pinks, some purples, some lilacs as well, just picking up those flowers. Similar techniques, quite a different look. Of course, that's against white. Against black, those colours really pop as well. Speaking of black, here's one that I've just cut from black cardstock, trimmed it to size, and it's about the colour of the background, doing all the work. But that wonderful silhouette just by itself speaks volumes. Now, if you want to go even more monochromatic, how about this? You can see here that I've cut two different ones, and one of them I've cut in half, and I've stuck the pieces over the top. So I'm getting a sense of depth. I'm getting those layers. And to bring those layers to life, I've actually used our luster wax, Sizzix luster wax, to bring that to the fore. The cardstock, incidentally, is all, and this cardstock for the background, this is all from our Sizzix cardstock range. These are just 3 of the 20 colours that come in that range. Absolutely gorgeous. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentation for today. So there we have it. Thank you very much for joining me. I do hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun making it. And if you want to know more about Tim Holtz Chapter 2, there are some wonderful videos both on Tim's site and on the Sizzix site. I myself have done an overview as well, so please check those out. And for any other inspiration, go to sizzix.co.uk if you're in Europe or the rest of the world. But if you're in the US, go to sizzix.com. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you again soon.